Welcome to Space and Grace, the podcast for soul-led entrepreneurs done hustling for their worth. Let's build a life and business that actually feels like freedom. I decided to record this episode because of something that I experienced last week, then a friend of mine experienced a couple of days ago, and one of my clients was also experiencing as we build our businesses. So I figure there are more of you out there who need to hear this. How do you hold on to the vision of what you want your business to become before the applause, before the return on investment? And how do you do it without collapsing and quitting? There's a big gap between having an idea, creating the vision and the action plan, and then getting applause for launching it into the world. And maybe no one is actually clapping, right? But by applause, I mean you're getting traction, people are validating your ideas and your efforts by saying yes to your offers. I've been sitting on this new idea for months. I wanted to create a mini masterclass series with other speakers, and I wanted it to be a powerful monthly reset for the people who listened. And, maybe the listeners would get a much needed kick up the bum to spur them into taking the action that they'd been avoiding, or maybe they'd get the permission they needed to just rest because they've been pushing too hard. Maybe they'd get the perspective shift they needed to do life and business differently. I knew with the vision I had in mind that when I launched it into the world, it would be powerful and super helpful to the solopreneurs, the mumpreneurs, the entrepreneurs, the business owners that were feeling stuck, stagnant, isolated, or just really confused about their lack of results or their inability to break through to the next level of success. So I had the basic idea, but I kept getting tangled up in the details. As per usual, I watched my brain overcomplicate it. And so after a few months, I finally landed on the structure. And that was an important step because I just could not create the topics and come up with my list of ideal speakers until I'd figured out the structure. Some people can build the plane as they're flying, and I can do that to an extent, but really I prefer to decorate the inside of the plane as we're flying. So once I had the structure nutted out, I ended up writing all the assets in about 2 hours. Like everything just dropped in. The landing pages, the speaker outreach emails, the audience invite emails, all of that stuff. They really did just drop in a couple of hours. And then I felt quite tapped out, so I didn't do anything else on it for about a week. And the past version of me would have kept running and pushing, but that's not how I want to build Space and Grace. So I waited. And I tried to trust that if I allowed myself to rest, it would all come together in its own time. And then the following weekend, I had another energy spurt and I mapped the speakers that I wanted to invite to the topics that I'd created, and I sent out some speaker invitations. So I was now ready for this to go out into the world, right? Like I'd been mucking around for ages, and then finally it all dropped in, and finally I had invited some people. And then nothing. I got nothing for 24 hours. Then I got one speaker who responded by asking questions that I couldn't answer, like what's the ROI for speakers? And what was the other one she asked? Oh, who else is coming to the event? And I'm like, well, I don't know. You were one of the first people I thought of. So I didn't have any sexy answers, and they were perfectly logical questions, but I couldn't really answer her at that point. But the thing is, even though those were logical questions and they made a lot of sense for her to be asking them, what my brain heard was, you have to prove your legitimacy, you have to prove your vision, and you have to prove yourself. And the part of me that's been trying to build or trying to stop building this business from hustle and heartbreak whispered, shit, I can't. So I did give her my honest answer, and she said no. But to be honest, even though I was disappointed she said no, at least she'd said something. So then I just threw my toys. I had a tantrum. I had a meltdown. My brain was like, what's the point? Why am I trying to put this together? Why does it always feel like I'm sticking my neck out only for someone to chop it off? No one is going to want to speak at these events. No one is going to want to listen to these events. I'm going to do all this work, and for what? Maybe I should just throw it all in and become a day trader. This is just way too hard. But don't worry, I wasn't done yet. I don't blame others. I don't blame the economy. I don't blame the government or the alignment of the planets. I blame me. So then my brain really got to work. And the next onslaught of thoughts were along the lines of, if I go all in and it doesn't work, I'll have to admit I'm not who I thought I was. Or if I show up fully and it still flops, then it means I was never the real deal, which translated means it's better to quit halfway and blame the strategy than show my soul and not be chosen. And here's another one my brain came up with. I can't answer those questions because I don't have real success yet, which translated means I am only allowed to lead once I have proof I'm worth following. Then I got to, if I give it everything and it still doesn't work, I'll have to admit I'm just not meant for this. And then finally, if I give it everything and it still doesn't work, it means I'm a failure and my desires don't matter. Whew. And that's not just a belief. That is a whole ass operating system. It's a glitch that explains everything. It explains why my creative surges are followed by crash outs, why visibility feels like danger, why every effort carries the pressure of proving I'm right to want what I want. And if this glitch continues running the show, everything I put out into the world becomes a test. It stops being about the thing I'm offering and starts being about me. Like I'm on trial every damn time. And every no becomes a cosmic fuck you from the universe. So it needed to be put to rest because it was built to keep me safe, but it was built to keep me safe in a world that measures worth by outcome. And I don't want to play in that space anymore. The world I want to live in doesn't follow my proof, it follows my signal. So let me just dive into the signal part for a moment. The signal is who you are when you're not trying to manage other people's perceptions. It's what people feel from you when you're not editing or proving or packaging yourself to be more acceptable. Signal is what pulses off you when you walk into a room or you hit publish or you show up without the mask. Signal doesn't convince, it calls. And I realized I'd been exhausting myself trying to be someone worth following instead of letting my frequency and my signal lead. So I needed to rewrite the operating system. I've been trying to build something spacious and true, but the wiring underneath still screams, do more, be better, earn it. And that's like trying to code a spaceship using Windows 95. So it makes sense that I'm tired. Of course, I'm questioning everything. Of course, day trading looks seductive because it's fast and it's clean and it doesn't ask me to undress my soul in public. But it also doesn't scratch the itch I'm here to scratch, to stop proving I belong and start owning the space like I built it. To say that what no one else is saying and watch the world recalibrate around it. To own a message that's so alive it pulls people in without a funnel. So with this event that I was creating, I'd put myself out there again and I didn't just hit a wall, I hit a threshold. My nervous system slammed the emergency brake and screamed, abort mission. And it had been fine when I was faffing around, confused about the structure, because that was safe, that was all theoretical. But the second I started moving and actually doing the thing, my system panicked. Because survival code doesn't trust speed. It reads momentum as danger. But not because speed is fast, because speed for me has meant overdrive. Because once I get going, I don't stop. I override my needs, I chase results, I push past the signals telling me to rest, and then I crash. So this wasn't just fear of launching. It was fear of losing myself in the launch. And it's not laziness. That's not resistance. That's the ceiling of my current safety programming colliding with my desire to move freely. It has nothing to do with the masterclass series I'm putting together. It's about whether my nervous system can sustain visibility without interpreting it as a threat. It's about whether my system can hold the frequency of power without needing instant proof that it's working. This isn't a summit or masterclass problem. It's a self-trust under pressure initiation. My system thinks it's trying to protect me from public failure and personal collapse. And as always, when we're building something new, the strategy itself isn't the thing that will make the difference. It's how we behave, who we are being as we're implementing the strategy. It's not about the public performance, it's about the personal development. It's about the private vow. I didn't need every speaker to say yes. I needed me to say yes again after the high of sending that first email. In the silence, when nobody was responding, with no return of investment in sight. Because that is how you build the kind of signal that doesn't wait for proof, it creates it. And that is a much harder place to sit in than if the speakers had said yes and I'd had that instant gratification and feedback and applause. And then I could just start running, right? Because yes, I've got to be honest, it would have been lovely if the speakers had responded right away with that affirmative, applauding me. This is such a great idea. I'm so glad you invited me to this. And, I would have preferred that. I'm not going to lie. But personal development doesn't happen in your comfort zone. I think that part of my role here is to give voice to the things that you may be experiencing or feeling, but you can't articulate. To help you understand that when you're doing something new, your brain, your nervous system, they are always going to freak out. And they have really creative ways to keep you in your safety bubble. And I'm right here with you, right? I'm not perfect, but I'm holding the flashlight for you. And as you can hear, I haven't perfected it by any means. I mean, every time I try something, even if I've done it before, I'll find some way to make it more difficult to prevent myself from actually doing the thing. And, I don't know anyone who has perfected this. So there's nothing wrong with you. But this is where it cracked open. And it wasn't just about this launch and it wasn't just about this week. It was like the whole blueprint I'd been unconsciously building from. Because what showed up wasn't just resistance, it was a revelation. What I discovered through this is that I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of proof. Proof that my vision was just a fantasy. Proof that my potential is just a mirage. Proof that all this devotion is just delusion. But I want you to hear this. Failure only exists when you believe your value is transaction-based. Your desire is sacred even when it doesn't perform. Your power is real even when no one sees it. And your signal is working even when it's not converting yet. And that's what changes everything. You stop trying to be chosen and you start choosing yourself again and again, even when it's quiet. You stop pivoting every time it's silent. You keep showing up until the world gets the message. And your desires are not promises of outcome. It's not about chasing a dream. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to justify what they want. Not getting what you want isn't failure. Deciding it's not worth wanting anymore, that's where the collapse starts. So I replaced my outdated belief with, if I have a desire or dream, it will happen. And this isn't just magical thinking, it's field alignment. Desire is how your future self calls you forward. Belief doesn't guarantee the outcome, but it does change how you show up, and that's what changes everything. And then I went a step further, and I asked myself, if I have a desire or dream, it will happen. So what's the next step that proves I believe that? And I waited for an answer from my body, not from my brain. And the message I received was to rest, to let my system build capacity before I build the strategy. Rest so I could hear what actually needed doing instead of just staying busy. I'm not here to chase, I'm here to call things in. And let me tell you, when you are putting together a new offer, whether it's a masterclass, a summit, a lead magnet, whatever, it feels way more powerful to call things in than to chase people or to get graspy and desperate. So I listened to myself and I rested for a few days. And then when I was feeling better, I followed up with the speakers again. It was a really simple step. I just followed up, and not everyone has said yes, but now some of them have said yes, and I realized it wasn't actually them saying yes that was what I needed, right? Some amazing speakers are stepping up to the plate, people I didn't even know about before, and you're going to hear more about the series once it's ready to launch, and trust me, there's going to be some more mind drama going on in the background as I get ready for that. But in the meantime, I just want to say, if you are being called to stretch outside of your comfort zone, if you've been investing in other people's strategies but not seeing the results that you expected, let's get on a call together. Because as you know, I'm not perfect, but I do have tools up my sleeve and I would love to share them with you. So in the show notes, you'll see the link to book a call. Let's connect. Let's have a wee chat about what's going on for you.